Welcome back to 50 States, 50 Murders. This is the podcast taking you, the listener, on an auditory road trip across all 50 states while we discuss 50 different murders. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Episode 5. Dakota, where are we heading to today?
We're going to be heading to Middletown, Rhode Island, and we're going to be covering the murder of Antoinette Vendetti Bruce.
This week, we will be covering the murder of Antoinette Vendetti Bruce. This was a murder that took place 12 years ago in the state of Rhode Island. But before diving into the case of Antoinette, let's take a moment to mention the state we're traveling to this week, as well as some notorious cases that took place there. Real quick, before we even get started, I got some beef with Rhode Island. First and foremost, their state name is an island. They're not an island. They're not even close to an island. There's only one side of their state that borders the ocean. So right off the rip, not a fan. And man, they really did not help us with information this week. We're going to try to do our best to give you guys 20 to 40 minutes, hopefully longer than that, but brace yourself. It's the smallest state. It might be our smallest episode. Rhode Island. It's the ocean state. It's 37 miles wide, 48 miles long. However, they do have a shoreline that stretches for 400 miles. That's pretty much the coolest thing about Rhode Island. They rank 50 out of all 50 states in size. That's what they take pride in, is just being small. Murder per capita. Obviously, it's a small state. It's 43rd in murders. There's 3 murders per 100K. Dakota, what's something cool going on in Rhode Island? What do they got for us? What can you do?
Man, I was genuinely curious as to what you can do there. Because
what does one do?
as much trouble as we found, there's not a lot of murder that goes on there, so there wasn't a lot to work with. I wanted to see what people do if they're not killing people.
Yeah, well, let's go for a drive to Rhode Island. Where are we stopping at? What are we doing?
So the number one place in all of Rhode Island on multiple sources on Google is a mansion called the Breakers.
Oh, okay, the Breakers.
So people come, they get about 300,000 visitors per year.
Nice.
So everyone comes to Rhode Island for the Breakers. It's just a mansion. Has 70 total rooms across 5 floors. So basically, you're coming to Rhode Island. Let's say you're coming to Ohio.
Yeah.
Just for Stan Hewitt. That's pretty much why people go to Rhode Island. And then a couple had this at number 1, but their zoo. They have a famous zoo in Providence. Providence is the only state or city I know of in there.
Yeah, the capital,
Got a pretty good basketball team.
Okay.
But yeah, their zoo and a mansion is what you got to look forward to.
Yeah.
Other than the ocean, of course.
Yeah. I feel like just going to the ocean. I was looking up some stuff here to try to just try to discuss anything or like give us some time here. And I mean, all I could really find is that Rhode Island is famous for silverware. So that's pretty cool. After you leave the Breakers, before heading home, stop at a gift shop of some sort, grab some silverware.
There probably is going to be silverware in that Breakers gift shop.
Okay, even better. Yeah, and then maybe hit the zoo.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, that's really all there is. I mean, I looked up famous people from Rhode Island. There's nobody, no musicians, no actors. They didn't really help us out this week. So Rhode Island's not an island. Not a lot to do. All right, let's talk about some famous cases, maybe some famous murderers from there. This one I found here, it's not necessarily a murder per se, but nonetheless, it's the West Warwick nightclub fire tragedy. This happened in 2002. I feel like for the most part, a majority of people are probably aware of this or have seen it at some point. You may not even realize it was in Rhode Island, but
I didn't.
Okay, exactly. You knew of the fire, but you didn't know it was actually in Rhode Island. Okay. So This was a deadly nightclub fire that took place in West Warwick, Rhode Island, and the band Great White was performing. Do you like the Great White?
Never heard of 'em.
So they're performing in this very small nightclub, and unfortunately, 100 people died, 200 more were injured after fireworks were set and the sound installation on the stage just caught fire.
Nice little setting off fireworks in a nightclub is a great idea.
Some pyro and on the inside of a very small nightclub. What could go wrong?
Man, I can't imagine being at like Peabody's and they just setting off fireworks.
Yeah, exactly.
There's not even seats there. You're just standing.
Yeah, just fireworks going off. It's insane when you really think about it. I mean, I personally wouldn't recommend this, but there is a video on YouTube that we both checked out, and it's like a POV video from someone who was inside the concert, just shooting some video, and immediately upon these fireworks going off, you can tell that the camera guy's like, "No, I'm out. I'm getting out of here."
Why are you setting off fireworks in the room?
Yeah, so he gets out with plenty of time. He got a jump start, but it was like scary how quickly that fire spread. It was just instantaneous. It took over the nightclub, and when you have there's 300 people inside, and again, it's a very small nightclub, so like limited doors. Once you have that many people trying to get out, I mean, it becomes impossible. So it's a pretty haunting video. But the club owners, there's two brothers who own the club, as well as the band tour manager. They were all charged with 200 counts of involuntary manslaughter.
Yeah, it was the tour manager's idea. He's the one that set it off.
You know what would be really cool? Let's do some fireworks. Yeah. What could go wrong? So I'm sure you've probably heard of it if you're listening to this. You just didn't know it was in Rhode Island. It was, in fact, in Rhode Island. How about as far as, like, some notorious murderers? I know we're lacking for info here, but does Rhode Island give us any major serial killers? Yeah,
there's a couple from there. Little viewer discretion advised. This guy's kind of sick. The Rhode Island Ripper. His name's Jeffrey S. Malhot, I think you say it. He's one of the few serial killers that was born and operated in Rhode Island. But similar to the Green River Killer, Gary Ridgway, who at the time was the most prolific killer in American history, he targeted prostitutes. But he didn't dump their bodies like Ridgway did. Instead, his way of disposing was a lot more brutal.
Oh, viewer discretion advised.
Yeah, that's where this comes in. After his first murder, he was kind of stuck on what to do.
What should I do?
He just let her body sit there for a day and a half in his apartment. But then he was watching a TV show. You're pretty familiar with this TV show, The Sopranos.
Okay.
And there's an episode, if you haven't watched Sopranos,
Spoiler
don't
alert.
Yeah, spoiler alert. What was it? What was the guy's name? It was his, shit. Can't remember the guy's name, but got into a fight with Tony, and Tony killed him. And Tony had his nephew, Chris, come over, put him in the bathtub, chopped him up.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, so he got the idea, and he put the body in bathtub, dismembered her body with a saw, and then he bagged the remains in a bunch of trash bags and threw it in a dumpster. Now, a year later, he did it again. Same way of disposal. And then it was a couple months after that where his third victim was chopped up that he was caught. Now, something I wanted to mention with this case, in the police interrogation about it, they knew it was him, but he wasn't admitting to it. They kept pressing him until he caved.
He broke.
So we've seen this before. You watch Making a Murder, right?
Yeah.
They got the kid to confess to murdering or helping murder when in reality he might not have helped at all.
Okay.
Do you think that's right that police can do that? They can hold somebody until they pretty much say they did it?
It's not right. I mean, there's another Netflix show that's just strictly cases that talk about that. But I mean, you got to ask for a lawyer though. You got to ask for your lawyer.
Yeah, so that guy was pretty sick. This next guy, I think he's even worse. His name's Craig Price. He was our country's youngest serial killer.
Ooh.
between the ages of 13 and 15.
Yikes. That's like what, 6th, 7th grade?
Yeah. So he was in middle school.
Yeah, just
the first time.
Just a little guy.
He killed 2 women and 2 little girls. So he was 13 years old. He killed a 27-year-old that was his neighbor. And then he was 15, so he was a freshman in high school. He killed another neighbor. It was like she was a little older, but then killed her two daughters, 10 and 7. And at the time, Rhode Island law prevented minors from being tried for these crimes. So he essentially was going to be set free.
Oh, wow.
This led to some changes. They had to change that, but
yeah,
that couldn't be used. That couldn't be used against him. You can't change the law after someone breaks it.
Okay.
There was actually a group of people from the area that lobbied to keep him in jail, which turned out to be the best thing.
Yeah.
While he was there, he couldn't stay out of trouble. Obviously, he's a troubled person if he's killing 4 people when he's in high school and middle school. From there, he threatened a correction officer. He had a couple assault cases, and he was repeatedly getting in fights. So he was sentenced to 10 to 25 years while in jail. And he was in there. He ended up doing his favorite thing, stabbing fellow inmate
there we go.
to death, giving him life in prison. So he's never getting out, thankfully. And the reason I say his favorite thing, it's sick to say that. I'm sorry.
Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
He stabbed the 2 women, the 27-year-old and the 50-year-old, 57 and 58 times. And then the 10-year-old girl, he stabbed 62 times. And then the 7-year-old, he stabbed 30 times.
Yikes.
Sorry to say all that. It's kind of sick, but yeah, he was a fucked up kid.
Okay, so that's all about Rhode Island. That's famous cases, famous stories. I really can't wait to see where you rank Rhode Island on your list at 1 through 49 at the end of this. I got to imagine Rhode Island's going to be up there for you. Let's jump into our case this week. And again, we're going to be talking about the case of Antoinette Vendetti Bruce. Our story starts at 4:30 p.m. on March 29th of 2011. So it's broad daylight and a 911 call from someone saying that they just watched a woman being stabbed and shoved in the back of a car. So being stabbed, that's a Rhode Island thing.
Yeah.
Upon arriving at the scene, which was a parking lot at a hotel, cops found a purse that was left behind. So we don't have a body, a victim, but we know the identity of the person because the ID in there stated Antoinette Vendetti Bruce. Unfortunately, a few hours later, they did have a body. Antoinette was found dead in a storm drain, covered up by a toilet on top of her with anywhere from 50 to 90 stab wounds.
Damn, we're going for records of how many times you can stab somebody. Jesus. So, our victim, Antoinette Vendetti Bruce, that's a tough name to say.
Yeah.
At the time of her death, she was 35 years old. She was born to Italian immigrants. She was born and raised in the neighboring state of Connecticut. She got married in 2008 to Christopher Bruce, where the Bruce comes from.
Sure.
It was a man she met at her younger sister's wedding.
Nice.
And at the time of her death, she was working at a Christmas tree shop in Orange, Connecticut, where she was a backroom supervisor. It was through this job that she made the trip that she would never return from. The company sent Antoinette to Middletown, Rhode Island, in what was supposed to be a couple weeks just to help set up a new store to get up and running.
Yeah, so again, we're really seeing like how difficult Rhode Island's being for us as a murder podcast. I mean, she wasn't born here. She's not from here. It's just she goes on this work trip from a Christmas tree store. Hey, we're going to send you to Rhode Island. Maybe you can check out.
It's an interesting job. Christmas tree store.
Yeah.
How does that go year round?
It's a very interesting concept, but hey, we're going to try to set something up in Rhode Island. Check it out. Maybe head to the Breakers while you're there. Check out the zoo. And then come back home. That's all we're asking of you. So because all this happened in the middle of the day, broad daylight again, there was a number of witnesses. And obviously they were able to give very detailed descriptions of the man who took Antoinette.
Yeah, so you thought Craig and Kelly from Nevada were dumb.
Yeah.
This guy's proven to be more of a dumbass than they are.
Yeah, a common theme that we're seeing with a lot of these people, I mean, we're episode 5 now, is not smart people.
No.
Not very intelligent. Yeah, very dumb. So police, they were able to quickly identify the suspect, Zach LaPalooza. Not only did he kidnap in daylight, but he dumped the body in daylight right there in the storm drain right next to a beach. And as we mentioned, going to the beach is the only thing to do in Rhode Island. So there's a lot of people there. He was spotted in the act by a police officer. Not only is he doing this in daylight, but he did it with a police officer right there.
Just didn't care who was around.
Yeah, hey, I mean, whatever.
Does not give a shit.
He was spotted in the act by a police officer, which then led to a high-speed chase that ended on foot. He eventually surrendered and was arrested with blood all over his clothes.
Yeah, now we have to get into why a person would stab someone
what's
to
the
90
motive?
times in front of so many witnesses, just not give a shit, dump their body. So, 24-year-old Zachary, he was a former employee of the Orange, Connecticut Christmas tree shop.
Ah, there it is.
Yeah, he was hired in and trained by Antoinette. It was part of her job as a supervisor. And over time, Zach became obsessed with Antoinette, and he started making advances on her, and she was not interested at all. She was happily married, and he just didn't care. He would still be inappropriate towards her, and it made her very uncomfortable. Now, this, among other things, led to him being fired in early March of 2011, and he blamed her for the firing. So that's why when he tracked her to a different state and killed her.
Okay. So a little bit different here. You know, something we talked about last episode, when someone's murdered, for the most part, it's always going to be the spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, fiance, partner. This specific case, that's not so. It was just a coworker who was obsessed and stalked her. So let's jump to the trial. Despite the murder being so brutal in court, Zach acted very remorseful and apologized to the family for the horrible acts that he had committed.
Okay, so he committed an insane murder.
Yep.
Just didn't give a shit, but then he turns around and basically,
tearful,
basically cries in court,
sad,
that he's
sorry,
sorry for what he did.
Very apologetic. So a little over 2 years after the murder, he did plead guilty to the murder, and he was sentenced to life while being eligible for parole after 20 years. But just in case he does get that granted, he will then have to serve another 20 years for kidnapping her. Because as mentioned, not only did he stab her, but then he threw her in the car and took off with her. Another person where I don't think we're going to have to see out in public ever again.
I mean, that's 40 years. He was 24 at the time.
It's possible, but not likely.
Yeah, let's just hope he doesn't find our Christmas tree shop to work at.
Small state, small episode. That's really all we got for it this week. We talked a little bit about Rhode Island itself, the things you can do, the things you can buy. Be sure to check out all those exciting things. We talked about some murders, some cases, and then, of course, the case of Antoinette Vendetti Bruce. So, as always, as we wrap up, Dakota, I got to ask you, on our blind ranking of states that you really want to see. Last week was a huge state for you. Colorado finished number 1 on your list. As far as Rhode Island goes, where are we at? Where do you put them at 1 through 49?
That's a tough one. Man, do you think they've special knives in Rhode Island? Because they're the silverware state.
Yeah, ironic.
All these murders are just stabbings.
Very ironic that you mentioned that, yeah.
I'm not really a big fan of silverware.
No? I mean, you just bought your first house. You don't have a special China silverware for when you have company?
No, I don't.
Maybe that's something you could consider. Go to Rhode Island.
I have special plates and glasses that your wife made me purchase.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, I told her I didn't want glass cups because I would break them. She was like, "Well, you need them for when company come over." And
sure.
I've broken 4 of them with no company.
Okay. All right. So you like zoos? You do like zoos?
Yeah, I do like zoos.
You like staying Hewitt?
I've been to a lot of zoos. That's not on my list. I'd rather go to a bigger zoo. San Diego, Washington, D.C.
You like the beach, but you're not the biggest beach guy. You've been known to get some wicked sunburns.
Yeah, I've been burned every part of my body, literally. That's not even a joke. Just every single part. I would have to put this around go 47.
Oh, 47. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. There it is. I'm excited to see what comes under Rhode Island.
I don't know. Can I change it later on?
Nope, we're locked in.
Oh, shit.
47.
All
right. Well, as always, we just want to take this quick moment to thank you, the listeners, for tuning in and listening to us every week. This is episode 5. We're 5 out of 50 through. Like I mentioned in the last episode, any recommendations, suggestions, constructive, polite criticism is appreciated. We're open to any of those suggestions that you guys send us our way, and it just means you're listening, so we definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, if you've not already, please be sure to follow and subscribe, and be sure to tune in next week for episode 6.